The Song of the Spring Witch. In the quiet twilight of its history, the kingdom of Merelith stood like a ghost of its former self, shrouded in an enigmatic haze that even its own people could not pierce. The once glorious realm, cradled between ancient mountains and rivers that seemed to sing with the memory of greatness, now lay silent. Its cobblestone streets echoed with footsteps of those who spoke in hushed tones, as if afraid their words might disturb the fragile illusion of normalcy. None alive could say when the forgetting began, only that it had deepened over the years, like a shadow growing longer with the setting sun. Records faded, once proud banners disintegrated into nameless tatters, and the stories of Merelith's founding turned to fragments, a broken mosaic no artisan could restore. And yet, there was one who refused to accept the veil drawn over his heritage. Prince Eryan, the final scion of a lineage veiled in mystery, roamed the crumbling halls of the royal palace like a restless spirit. His father, the last king, had passed into eternity with words more cryptic than comforting. Find the spring's voice. It holds what we've lost. For years, Eryan had pondered this riddle. The court dismissed it as the ramblings of a dying man, but to Eryan, it was a command. He had glimpsed traces of something more, a sense of purpose woven into the cryptic words and the aching emptiness of the kingdom's collective memory. There were whispers of a time when Merelith's fields gleamed golden, when the people sang songs of their rulers with pride. Those whispers carried the faint scent of truth, tantalizing yet elusive. As winter's icy grip began to loosen, and the first hints of spring's arrival painted the horizon with blushes of pink and gold, Eryan knew his time had come. He would seek the spring witch, a figure from the oldest of tales. The elders spoke of her in tones both reverent and fearful, a being who could sing the very essence of memory into existence. They claimed her song was woven into the first bloom of spring, and her power could either restore or destroy. The people of Merelith regarded such tales as fanciful relics of an ancient time, but Eryan felt the weight of their truth. He had heard of the witch's grove, hidden in the heart of the world, a place that revealed itself only to those who sought it with pure purpose or desperate need. On the morning of his departure, the prince stood at the edge of the palace grounds, the rising sun painting the land in hues of amber and rose. The air carried the faintest hint of blooming jasmine, a promise of life stirring beneath the earth. Eryan carried little with him, a blade forged by his ancestors, a cloak to shield him from the biting winds, and the silver flute given to him by a blind minstrel, a gift as strange and inexplicable as the minstrel's sudden disappearance afterward. The journey ahead was as uncertain as the history he sought to uncover. Eryan's heart was heavy with questions, and the answers felt like distant stars. bright but out of reach. Yet, as he took his first step beyond the palace gates, a strange sensation welled within him, as though the land itself was watching, waiting. The forgotten kingdom held its breath. Its prince had begun the search, and the echoes of a long-lost song stirred faintly in the winds. The spring's voice would soon rise, and with it, the truth buried in the bones of the earth. The journey unfolded like a dream woven with shadows and light. Prince Eryan ventured through the kingdom's forgotten edges, where the roads turned to overgrown trails, and the air carried the weight of ancient whispers. Each step took him further from the hollow echoes of his palace, deeper into a realm where the past felt as tangible as the present, its presence lingering in the rustling leaves and murmuring streams. The first sign came on the third day, as Eryan passed through a grove of birches that gleamed like silver beneath the pale sun. There, a blind minstrel sat cross-legged, his face weathered but serene, his milky eyes fixed on nothing and everything. "You seek the witch," the minstrel said, his voice a melody of gravel and silk. He held out a silver flute, tarnished but beautiful, its surface etched with symbols Eryan could not decipher. "Take this. It will guide you when words cannot." Eryan hesitated, but the minstrel's hands did not falter. As soon as he accepted the flute, the minstrel vanished, as though swept away by the breeze. Eryan searched the grove, calling out, but found no trace of him. The gift, though mysterious, felt oddly reassuring in his hands. He tucked it away and pressed on, the silver weight a silent promise. As the days turned to weeks, the land grew wilder, its beauty tinged with an unsettling otherness. The trees here were ancient, their roots knotted like the gnarled fingers of forgotten gods. The rivers sang in tones that seemed almost human, their melody shifting with the rhythm of the wind. The air grew warmer, and the first blossoms of spring began to unfurl, painting the landscape with soft whites and tender pinks. On the seventh night, Eryan encountered a woman cloaked in ivy, her presence both unnerving and captivating. Her voice was a low hum, as though she were more tree than flesh. "You tread a path few dare," she murmured, her green eyes glinting like shards of emerald. "The spring witch will see your heart before she hears your plea. Beware, prince, for not all truths bring peace." Before Eryan could respond, the ivy-cloaked woman melted into the forest, her form dissolving into the shadows between the trees. He felt her warning echo in his mind long after she was gone, yet his resolve did not waver. Finally, on the 14th day, he reached a meadow unlike any other he had seen. It lay nestled between hills that seemed to breathe, their slopes adorned with wildflowers in every hue of the spectrum. The air was thick with the scent of blooming jasmine, and the sky above was a tapestry of stars and clouds that shimmered like silk. Eryan stepped into the meadow, and the world seemed to shift. The whispers of the forest fell silent, replaced by an overwhelming stillness, as though the land itself were holding its breath. He felt a strange hum beneath his feet, faint yet unmistakable, as if the earth's pulse was quickening. The first notes of a song reached him, not from a human voice, but from the meadow itself. The petals of the flowers seemed to tremble in harmony, their delicate forms swaying to a rhythm only they could hear. Eryan stood transfixed, his breath caught in his throat. And then, from the heart of the meadow, she appeared. The spring witch moved like a shadow kissed by light, her form both ethereal and solid. Her hair was a cascade of wildflowers, her gown a flowing tapestry of vines and blossoms. Her eyes, deep as the night sky, fixed on Eryan, and for a moment he felt as though she could see through the layers of his soul. "Why have you come?" she asked, her voice resonant as the wind through ancient pines. Eryan bowed low, his heart pounding. "I seek the truth of my people, the history we have forgotten. My father spoke of your song, of its power to awaken what is lost." The witch tilted her head, a faint smile playing on her lips. "And do you know what it is you ask for, Prince of Merelith?" Eryan hesitated. "I know only that my kingdom cannot survive without its past." The witch's smile deepened, enigmatic and sharp as a blade. "Then prepare yourself, for the song is not a gift, it is a test." As her words faded into the air, the meadow seemed to come alive, its colors intensifying, its hum growing louder. Eryan felt the weight of the moment settle over him. The search for the song was over, but the true challenge had only just begun. The meadow seemed to hold its breath as the spring witch regarded Prince Eryan with a gaze that pierced through time itself. Her presence was neither welcoming nor hostile, but something far more unsettling. An embodiment of the untamed balance of nature. The flowers around her swayed as though drawn to her, their petals glowing faintly under the silvered moonlight. "You carry the weight of your kingdom," she said, her voice a melody woven with secrets. "But do you understand the burden of truth?" Eryan hesitated, the witch's question pressing into him like a stone in his chest. How could he answer what he did not yet know? He steadied himself, meeting her gaze. "If my people are to have a future, we must first reclaim our past." The witch tilted her head, her eyes narrowing slightly, as if measuring the truth in his words. "The past is not a story bound by ink or memory. It is alive, entangled in every root, every drop of rain, every breath of the wind. What you seek is not merely knowledge, but the soul of your kingdom." She stepped closer, her feet barely touching the earth. The scent of jasmine grew stronger, intoxicating, as though the very air carried her essence. In her hand, a single blossom unfurled, a deep, blood-red flower that pulsed faintly with an inner light. She extended it toward him. "Take this," she said. "Its bloom will open the gateway to what you seek. But know this, The truth you uncover may demand a sacrifice greater than you are prepared to give. Eryan reached out, his hand trembling slightly, and accepted the flower. Its stem felt warm, almost alive, and as soon as it touched his palm, he felt a strange vibration ripple through him. It was as if the flower recognized him, as if it had been waiting for this moment. The witch's gaze softened, though her smile remained inscrutable. The song I will sing is not for you alone, Prince of Merelith. It is for the land, for the rivers and skies that have endured the silence of forgetting. They will remember with you, and together you must decide what to do with what is revealed. Eryan nodded, his resolve firm despite the growing weight of her words. I am ready. The witch stepped back, and the meadow around them seemed to awaken. The flowers trembled, their colours deepening as the air filled with a low, resonant hum. The stars above shimmered brighter, their light bending toward the witch as if drawn to her song before it even began. She raised her arms, and the first note escaped her lips, a sound so pure and haunting that it seemed to freeze time. The melody wove through the meadow, threading itself into the wind and soil, reaching into the roots of the trees and the veins of the flowers. It was a song of beginnings, of the earth's first breath and the fire of creation. Eryan felt the song pull at him, unmooring his thoughts, his very sense of self. He clutched the red flower, its warmth anchoring him as visions began to rise from the earth around him. At first they were faint, like shadows cast on the edge of a dream. He saw glimpses of his ancestors, their faces proud and stern, their hands raised in triumph and trembling with blood. He saw a kingdom rising from the wilderness, its foundation laid not with stone, but with promises, some kept, many broken. The song grew richer, its tones sharper as the visions grew clearer. Eryan saw the first rulers of Merelith standing before the witch, younger but no less otherworldly. Their voices were desperate as they pleaded with her, their words lost to the ages, but their intent unmistakable. They had sought her power, her song, to bind the land to their will. In their arrogance, they had taken her voice and woven it into the very fabric of the kingdom. The forgetting was no accident. It was a curse, a punishment for their hubris. As the melody shifted, darker images emerged. He saw famine and war, the land writhing beneath the weight of betrayal. He saw the witch silenced, her voice stolen, her power used to build an empire that could not stand under the weight of its lies. Eryan fell to his knees, the red flower burning in his hand. Tears blurred his vision as the final notes of the witch's song faded into the air, leaving the meadow in a silence so profound it felt like the earth itself was grieving. The witch stepped closer, her expression unreadable. "Now you know," she said softly. "The past is yours to claim, but it will not come without cost. The land remembers, Prince of Merelith, and it waits for your answer. Eryan looked up at her, his heart heavy with the enormity of what he had seen. The truth had been revealed, but the path forward was more uncertain than ever. The witch's song had awakened not just memories, but a reckoning, a choice that could either redeem or doom his kingdom. The meadow held its silence, a heavy, pregnant stillness that pressed against Eryan's chest. The visions from the witch's song still burned in his mind, vivid and unrelenting. His ancestors' faces swirled before him, noble, desperate and cruel. Their choices, their greed, had not only shaped the kingdom of Merelith, but shackled it to a darkness it could not escape. The spring witch stood over him, her shadow stretching long in the moonlight. The red flower in his hand pulsed faintly, its warmth both a comfort and a burden. Her gaze was steady, neither condemning nor kind, as she spoke. The truth lies before you now, Prince of Merelith. But truth, like the spring, is not a gift freely given. It demands a price. Are you ready to pay it? Eryan struggled to his feet, his legs trembling beneath him. He looked at the witch, his voice hoarse with emotion. What is the price? The witch tilted her head, her hair of wildflowers cascading like a crown of thorns. The memory you seek is not just a tale of your ancestors. It is a bond between the land and those who walk upon it. To reclaim it is to reopen the wounds, to feel the weight of their choices as if they were your own. And once opened, such wounds cannot simply heal. Her words wrapped around him like a vine, thorny and unyielding. Eryan felt the weight of her meaning settle in his chest. To know the truth fully, to embrace it, would mean not only inheriting the legacy of his ancestors, but bearing their sins as well. Show me, he said at last, his voice resolute despite the quiver beneath. If I am to lead my people, I must understand what we have done. The witch nodded, a flicker of something unreadable crossing her face. Respect, perhaps, or sorrow. She gestured toward the mirror-like pool at the heart of the meadow, its surface shimmering with an otherworldly light. This pool holds the memory of Merelith, preserved in the threads of time. You must look into it as I sing the song anew. But beware, what you see will not merely be a story. You will feel it, live it. Their pain will become your pain, their choice is yours to carry. Do you still wish to proceed? Eryan's heart pounded. He knew there was no turning back. He stepped toward the pool, his reflection rippling on its surface. I am ready, he said, though his voice betrayed the tremor of fear beneath his resolve. The witch raised her arms, her song rising once more. The melody was different now, darker, heavier, like a storm gathering on the horizon. The pool responded immediately, its surface swirling with colors and shadows. As Eryan gazed into its depths, the world around him seemed to dissolve, pulling him into a vision so vivid it felt like reality. He stood in the throne room of a younger Merelith, its walls gleaming with gold and ivory. Before him, his ancestor King Eryan knelt before the Spring Witch, her voice silenced by a cruel, glimmering chain around her neck. Her eyes burned with fury as Eryan demanded her song, his words laced with desperation and greed. The vision shifted. Eryan was in the fields of Merelith, watching as the land flourished unnaturally, its crops growing thick and fast under the witch's stolen power. The people celebrated, oblivious to the cost. Beneath the soil, the roots rotted, the earth crying out in pain. Then came the wars, endless and bloody. The kingdom fought to protect its unnatural bounty, while the land itself withered under the strain. Eryan felt the pain of the earth as if it were his own, a deep, aching sorrow that left him gasping for breath. Finally, he saw the curse take shape. The witch, her voice returned but laced with fury, sang the song of forgetting. It swept through the kingdom like a storm, erasing memories, shrouding the land in a veil of ignorance. The people forgot their crimes, their triumphs, their very identity, left to wander in a haze of unknowing. The vision ended abruptly, leaving Eryan on his knees beside the pool, his body trembling, his mind reeling. The weight of the truth pressed down on him like an avalanche. The witch knelt beside him, her voice now soft, almost gentle. "This is the burden you have claimed, Prince. The memory you sought is yours, but it will not free you. It will demand action, sacrifice, and change. What will you do with it?" Eryan looked up at her, his face streaked with tears. The answer was as heavy as the truth itself, but he knew there was no other path. "I will make it right," he said, his voice steady despite the storm inside him. "For my people and for the land." The witch studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "The choice is yours, but remember, the bloom of spring is not only rebirth, it is also the cost of growth." As the last notes of her song faded into the air, the meadow seemed to exhale, the flowers bowing as though in reverence. Eryan rose to his feet, the red flower still pulsing faintly in his hand. The past was his now, but so was the responsibility to shape the future. Prince Eryan left the meadow with the witch's song echoing in his soul, the memories of Merelith etched into his very being. The weight of the truth bore down on him like a mountain, yet with it came a strange clarity. He understood now the fragility of the balance his ancestors had shattered. The land itself pulsed with a kind of waiting, as if it knew the prince carried the potential for both redemption and ruin. The journey back to the heart of the kingdom was different from the path that had led him to the Spring Witch. The forest seemed less shadowed, the rivers less mournful, yet the beauty of the land was tinged with sorrow, as if the earth itself carried the memory of its exploitation. Eryan felt the pain of the soil in every step he took. When he finally stood once more, before the crumbling walls of the palace, he knew his task was only beginning. The people of Merelith had forgotten their past, but they had not forgotten their hope. That hope flickered in the way they tilled the barren fields, repaired the decaying buildings, and cared for one another despite the kingdom's fading glory. The red flower, its pulse fainter now, rested in Eryan's hand as he addressed the gathered court. The nobles were skeptical, their faces lined with suspicion. The common folk, who had little left but faith, listened with rapt attention. "Our kingdom was built on a lie," Eryan began, his voice steady despite the tremor in his heart. "A pact made in arrogance and upheld in silence. We demanded life from the land without giving back, and in return, we have been cursed with forgetting. But no longer." He recounted the vision granted by the Spring Witch, sparing no detail. He spoke of the stolen song, the land's suffering, and the memory of the wars that had torn the kingdom apart. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the crowd, disbelief mingling with the sting of recognition. "Merelith is not only its people," Eryan continued. "It is the rivers that flow through our fields, the mountains that watch over us, the soil that feeds us. If we are to reclaim our future, we must begin by mending the bond we broke." The red flower, still alive with the faintest glow, seemed to shimmer as he held it high. "This bloom is a promise, a sign of spring's forgiveness, but it is also a warning. To honor the land, we must change. We must give as we take. Only then can we truly heal." The silence that followed was as heavy as the truth itself. The nobles exchanged wary glances, but the common folk began to stir, their eyes alight with a spark of something long buried: belief. Days turned to weeks as Eryan began the work of restoration. He decreed that no field would be sown without first honoring the land. Festivals were held to celebrate the bloom of spring, not as mere revelry, but as acts of gratitude. Songs returned to the air, not of conquest, but of renewal. The Spring Witch's song, though never heard again, lingered in the hearts of those who had listened to Eryan's call. The people began to feel the land respond. Crops grew not with unnatural speed, but with steady, honest abundance. The rivers ran clearer, their melodies softer. The forest, once shadowed and silent, hummed with the life of returning wildlife. Eryan stood at the edge of the meadow 1 year later, the scent of jasmine faint in the spring air. The red flower had long since withered, its petals scattered to the winds, yet its essence remained in the kingdom's revival. He wondered if the witch watched from the shadows of her grove, her voice woven into the whispers of the trees. The past had not been erased, nor could it be. The pain, the mistakes, the arrogance, they were as much a part of Merelith as its rivers and fields. But in embracing the truth, Eryan had given his people something greater, a chance to grow, not by erasing their sins, but by learning from them. As the first bloom of spring appeared on the horizon, The kingdom held its breath. In the faint rustle of the wind, Eryan thought he heard a familiar melody, haunting and beautiful. A song that reminded him that the bloom of spring was not just rebirth,